How could you serve such a cheap meal? Seriously, what's wrong with you? We're here to hang out. So why don't you treat us to some French cuisine for a change?
That was my sister-in-law, Katie, demanding yet again. This is my house. And I am not Katie and her husband's maid.
Seriously, how about preparing something fancy once in a while? You've got money, right?
Why on earth would I? Her husband, Jake, laughed along, backing her up. Why should I prepare something extravagant for two freeloaders who only visit to mooch off me?
I mean, I've been living overseas this whole time, right? Back then, I had a private chef cooking for me every night. Oh, how I miss those days.
Katie starts bragging, even though no one asked. So what if she lived abroad? This is the United States. And this is my house with my son, George. Because she's my late husband's brother's wife, I've avoided pushing back too hard and reassured my in-laws that everything was fine. But I've reached my limit.
Hey, hurry up and treat us to some French cuisine.
With that, Katie threw the hot bowl of soup it just served right at me. Not once has she shown any gratitude for the food I cook, only complaints. And now, this. Treating something someone made with such care so disrespectfully. Something inside me snapped. Hey, call your parents right now. My name is Emily. I'm 33 years old and the mother of one child. My husband was a police officer, but he passed away shortly after we got married. He was a detective in the criminal investigations unit, and there's no other way to describe it but bad luck. I understand just how dangerous and demanding a job being a police officer is, living so close to the edge of life and death. When I got the news of my husband's death, I was pregnant. He knew, of course, and had been working harder than ever for the sake of our unborn child. But maybe he pushed himself too hard. When I got the call that he had passed, I was devastated. I cried uncontrollably during the funeral, causing trouble for his parents and colleagues. Thankfully, my in-laws, Mary and John, were kind and supportive, always worrying about me during my pregnancy. With their help, I was able to safely give birth to my son. From then on, I knew I had to pull myself together for the sake of raising my child, George, on my own. Even as I worked to recover, my in-laws remained supportive, constantly encouraging me to lean on them whenever I needed to. Luckily, their house is on my way to work, so I've been leaving George with them during the day. They absolutely adore their first grandchild, so I never have to worry. Even on late work days, they assure me it's fine to let George stay over for the night so I can rest. I can't express enough gratitude for everything they've done for me. Even though I've mostly recovered from losing my husband, it's thanks to my in-laws that I've truly found my footing again. It's been 5 years since my husband passed. Even now, George and I remain close with my in-laws. Through them, I learned that my late husband had an older brother named Thomas, who had been estranged for many years. Wait, Thomas? His older brother?
From the sound of it, I guess you didn't know about him.
No, I didn't. I was shocked because my late husband had never mentioned anything about his brother. Apparently, even though the two were brothers, they didn't get along at all. That's probably why my late husband never talked about Thomas, or so my in-laws said. But I couldn't help but wonder why they decided to bring it up now. As I listened, they explained that Thomas had always been a troublemaker, and they disowned him when he became an adult. For a while, he kept trying to come back home, claiming he had nowhere else to go. But one day, he stopped showing up entirely. Since then, they hadn't heard from him. but recently had been spotted around the neighborhood. Because George and I visit my in-laws frequently, they warned me to be careful.
We haven't been in contact with Thomas at all, so we don't even know if he's aware of your existence, Emily.
But before anything happens, we thought it'd be best to tell you about him.
Thank you, John and Mary. I'll be extra careful. I nodded at their words and made sure to stay vigilant every time I went to and from their house. Given my job, I'm naturally good at staying alert to my surroundings. So whether I was heading to work, visiting my in-laws, or coming home, I always stayed on guard. Yet, despite all that, there was one man who managed to slip past my defenses.
Finally found ya.
Who are you?
You must have heard about me from the folks, right?
With a smirk, the man said he had a hard time tracking me down. This man, who suddenly showed up at my house one day, bore a faint resemblance to my late husband. But why? I'm sure I hadn't made any mistakes that could have led him to follow me.
Wait, don't tell me you haven't been told?
Are you, by any chance, Thomas, my husband's older brother?
What do you know? You do get it.
As I saw Thomas smirking, I realized I'd slipped up. Somehow, Thomas had avoided my radar entirely. But was he looking for me because my husband had passed away? A swirl of emotions churned inside me. What do you want?
Just came to check out what kind of woman my brother married.
The way Thomas licked his lips as he looked at me made my skin crawl. Checking me out, huh? Well then, how about offering a prayer for him?
Why would I bother with that guy? I'm just here to check things out today. Looks like I've got something fun to look forward to.
That day, Thomas left without doing anything else. But what did he mean by having something fun to look forward to? I couldn't shake the uneasy feeling his words left behind. And I regretted it. I should have told my in-laws that Thomas had come by that very same day. If I had, maybe we could come up with a better plan together. But it was already too late. From that day on, Thomas started showing up at my house frequently. It seemed he had somehow learned about my husband's passing and used the fact that he wasn't around anymore as an excuse to visit repeatedly.
Hey, sorry, but can you lend me about $500 again?
Again, aren't you working, Thomas? What kind of job do you have that you're borrowing money all the time?
That's none of your business. Just hand over the cash. I'm your husband's older brother, after all.
Thomas claimed to have a job, but he never provided any details. Instead, he kept coming up with excuses to ask me for money. Whenever I tried to ask him for a reason, he would yell at me, demanding that I listen to him because he's my brother-in-law. If I refused to lend him money or ask questions like I did this time, he'd take his anger out on things in my house. Because of that, George had grown scared of Thomas. To protect George, I gave Thomas the amount he asked for. That way, he'd leave quietly. My gosh, what should I do? I can't let George be scared any longer. I should probably talk to my in-laws about this. I racked my brain, trying to figure out how to protect George and keep our peace. One weekend, Thomas showed up with Katie, a fiancée who was much younger than him.
Here I am again.
It happened just as George and I were playing at home, about to head out to buy groceries for dinner. Again? Well, and who's this?
This is Katie, my fiancée.
I was surprised to hear he wasn't married yet. Was he borrowing money from me to fund his wedding?
Hi there. I'm Katie Forrester.
Nice to meet you.
So you're Thomas's brother's wife? Well, even though I am younger than you, I'll be Thomas' wife. So from now on, You better address me with respect.
I couldn't help but think she was incredibly rude. But since she'd be Thomas' wife, it wasn't entirely unreasonable to address her respectfully, even if she was younger than me.
Anyway, this place feels so basic and average.
Well, it's America. What do you expect?
True. So, in other words, it is poor.
Katie stretched out her words, laughing through her nose and mocking me during our first meeting. Her appearance certainly looked wealthy, but everything she said seemed irrational. As we talked more, I learned she had grown up abroad as what people call a returnee and had moved back to the US with her entire family 2 years ago.
Katie's parents are both executives at major corporations. Pretty awesome, right?
Wow, that's impressive. As I looked at Katie's face next to Thomas, I felt like I'd seen her somewhere before. She looks familiar.
What? Is there something on my face?
Oh no, not at all. Sorry if I offended you.
Maybe you're just jealous because Katie's way too pretty.
Jealous? Not a chance. That's what I thought as I tried to keep my composure. At the time, it was truly our first meeting, and I figured the resemblance to someone else was just a coincidence, so I didn't press the matter any further. Even though her mocking annoyed me, I couldn't stoop to her level and say something equally petty. I reminded myself to stay calm and act mature since I was older. But then, I noticed the necklace Katie was wearing around her neck. It looked very familiar. That's a lovely necklace, Katie.
Oh, this? Thanks. My mom gave it to me.
I see. Where have I seen that before? Normally, I'd be able to remember right away, but Thomas and Katie's pushy presence had thrown me off my game. I knew there was something important I needed to remember. Trying not to provoke them, I played the good host as best I could. That day, they left earlier than usual, likely because Katie had just come to introduce herself, and Thomas' attitude was slightly less unbearable than usual. To my relief, they didn't bother George at all and left satisfied after a short visit. Even though I was angry at their dismissive remarks about my cooking, I felt relieved thinking that if Thomas got married, maybe he'd stop coming over so often. But that hope turned out to be naive. After Thomas and Katie got married, they started showing up at my house almost daily to eat the food I cooked. Why do these two keep coming here every single day? I just want to live peacefully with George. Even though Katie practically lived at my house, she never offered to help with the cooking. On top of that, she constantly complained, saying my food wasn't good. If it's that bad, why don't you cook, Katie?
No way. That's way too much trouble. Why should I cook? I'm here because I don't want to do housework.
We're doing you a favor by coming here.
Neither Katie nor Thomas had ever helped out, not even once. Instead, they'd lounge around in the living room, watching TV, playing games, and napping on the couch. When they were satisfied with relaxing at my house, they'd leave as if nothing had happened. I couldn't understand what they wanted or what they were trying to accomplish. One weekend, as usual, Thomas and Katie made themselves at home in my house. While Thomas was in the living room, I noticed Katie was nowhere to be found. Thomas, where's Katie?
Probably in the bathroom or something.
If that's the case, she should be back soon, I thought. Since Thomas didn't seem interested in checking, I decided to look for her myself. Even though it's my sister-in-law's house, it's troubling to have someone wandering around without permission. When I finally found Katie, she was rummaging through my dresser and stealing a cash-filled envelope I'd hidden there. Hey, Katie, what are you doing?
Oh, you caught me.
The money Katie was holding was the cash I'd saved up to buy George's school backpack. I glared at Katie, who had wandered through my house only to try stealing it.
You don't have to glare at me like that. I was just thinking of borrowing it for a bit.
Are you saying you were thinking of borrowing a little? Katie laughed it off, trying to brush the whole thing under the rug. If she really wanted to borrow money, she could have just asked, like Thomas always did. That day, I managed to stop her from taking the money, but she repeated the same behavior several times afterward. Every time, I scolded her. This behavior was getting out of hand. Stealing someone else's belongings is a crime, you know.
So what? It's just a little, isn't it?
Even a little is still wrong.
This is why poor people are the worst. So stingy.
Even though I was merely pointing out that stealing is wrong, she had the nerve to lash out at me.
An annoying sister-in-law like you deserves this.
Katie started scattering garbage, which was actual kitchen waste, around my house. This was crossing the line. It was incredibly inconsiderate to my neighbors. I immediately cleaned it up. But honestly, how childish could someone be? Even though there's a significant age gap between her and Thomas, Katie is an adult. The fact that she acted this way made me think her parents must be spoiled her rotten. Being wealthy executives, they probably indulged their daughter's whims. I couldn't help but wonder what kind of people her parents were. For now, I decided it'd make sure Katie apologized for the garbage incident. However, it seemed like she felt guilty about it, perhaps even embarrassed, because after that, both Thomas and Katie suddenly stopped coming to my house. I thought I'd finally be able to live in peace. For a while, the two of them really didn't show up, and I enjoyed peaceful days with George. We even made plans to visit my in-laws during the holiday season. But then, as the end of the year approached, they came by again.
Hey there. Long time no see. You missed us, didn't you?
Katie waltzed in, saying something absurd right off the bat, as if it missed them. I thought to myself, but didn't say it out loud. We're about to head to John and Mary's place. Would you and Thomas like to join us?
No way.
Yeah, not a chance. They'd just complain about everything if we went.
Had they even visited since getting married? The two of them looked thoroughly annoyed, so I could imagine it must have been a very uncomfortable experience for them. Even though they hadn't come by in a while, Thomas and Katie immediately started lounging around my house as if they owned the place. You'd think it'd be more relaxing for them to stay at their own home instead of coming here. Katie always bragged about how amazing her parents were, so surely her house must be impressive too. Why do they keep coming to my house? That was something I couldn't help but wonder. As I was lost in thought, Thomas suddenly looked at me with a smirk and said,
Maybe it's time I started living here. You must be lonely without a man around.
Wow, Thomas, that's a great idea. We'll keep you company, so you should be grateful, Emily.
Katie chimed in, riding on Thomas' words. There's no way I'd let something so terrifying happen. To be clear, that would be a huge inconvenience. If you're going to joke around like that, you can leave right now. Horrified by their suggestion, I firmly expressed how unwelcome they were. The idea of them staying here was unthinkable, and I had to stop it no matter what. I glared at Thomas and Katie. Katie responded with a sly grin.
Hey, Thomas. Did you know she's been lying about being a government worker?
What?
What are you even talking about? Don't make things up. Katie's sudden accusation that I wasn't a government worker left me baffled. Why would she think that?
Because I saw you walking around town alone during a weekday morning.
Apparently, Katie had spotted me while I was out on a work-related errand. I had only ever told them that I worked as a public servant. But Katie seemed to think all government workers spend their days doing desk work at city offices. I don't know when you saw me, but I was working at the time.
Oh, stop lying. You were probably just taking a break from parenting and wandering around for fun.
What's this, Emily? You got a guy on the side or something? Guess you're not as innocent as you look.
No matter how many times I tried to explain, they refused to believe me. I realized I couldn't keep wasting my time on these two. Deciding to let them stay just for the night, I reheated the chicken soup. Thankfully, I had made a little extra. As I served them dinner, Katie suddenly threw the steaming soup at me. "What the heck are you doing? That's dangerous."
Serving us this poor excuse for a meal. Honestly, what's wrong with you? We're visiting, so you should treat us to French cuisine once in a while.
Katie demanded, speaking to me as if she were above me.
She's right. How about preparing something fancy for a change? You've got money, don't you?
Why should I?
Back when I was living abroad, I had a private chef cooking for me every night.
Katie started bragging out of nowhere. So what if she lived overseas? This is America. And this is my house with George. Because Thomas was my late husband's brother, I tried not to push back too much and had reassured my in-laws that everything was fine. But now, I'd had enough.
Hey, hurry up and treat us to some French cuisine.
Call your parents here right now.
Why should I?
When I demanded it in a firm tone, Katie flinched a little but tried to argue back.
Go for it.
Thomas seemed entertained by my sudden change in attitude and encouraged the situation with a grin. "I'm going to give your idiot parents a piece of my mind for raising such a foolish and inconsiderate daughter."
What did you just say? Fine, I'll call them. We can hire the best lawyers if needed.
Katie snapped at my words, clearly infuriated, and declared her intention to fight back. "Sure, go ahead. But don't say I didn't warn you about what's coming." I gave Katie a confident smirk, refusing to back down. It's easy to provoke someone like her, because she lets her emotions take over so quickly. While Katie was calling her parents, I left the room briefly and explained the situation to my supervisor at work, arranging for them to come over.
Humph. You'll regret crossing me.
"Oh, I'm looking forward to it." As I smirked, Katie sneered and laughed, dismissing me as just some local government worker. She probably thought her parents' influence made her untouchable. But I'd had enough. If I was going to deal with this, I was going all in. A few hours later, Katie's parents arrived. Even though it was my house, Katie greeted them at the door like it was hers. They walked in with the same arrogant attitude as Thomas and Katie. Like parent, like child, I thought to myself. Katie's father, Charles, who had been listening to her exaggerated complaints, glared at me with a furious expression.
"So, you're the one trying to harm our precious daughter? Do you know what'll happen if you hurt Katie?"
"And what exactly will happen?"
"I have connections in politics. It wouldn't take much for me to ruin your career as a government worker."
Charles smirked as he tried to intimidate me. Unfazed, I replied, "You're Charles Forrester, aren't you?" Charlotte's eyes widened in shock. Then I turned to her mother. "And you must be Patricia Forrester."
Why do you know our names?
"Patricia, this might be bad."
Yeah, it might.
Their earlier bravado vanished, and they glanced nervously at each other, falling silent.
Hey, Dad, Mom, why aren't you saying anything? This woman said terrible things to me.
Katie, frustrated, began berating her parents. But Katie's parents didn't respond to her. You both look like you're wondering how I know who you are.
Yeah. How do you know my parents' names when you've never even met them? It doesn't make any sense.
Katie demanded. Without missing a beat, I answered. Because Charles Forrester and Patricia Forrester standing right there are both wanted nationwide for fraud.
What?
Katie gasped, stunned. I revealed to her that her parents were, in fact, criminals. They posed as corporate executives and scammed victims out of large sums of money with fake investment schemes.
You've got to be kidding. Stop making up ridiculous lies.
Katie tried to laugh it off, but her parents' faces had gone pale.
Why don't we discuss this another day?
Dad, what are you talking about?
Katie asked, confused, as her parents started edging toward the door. But my supervisor, along with several officers, was waiting for them outside the entrance. Startled, Charles and Patricia screamed as the officers apprehended them.
Dad, Mom.
Katie shouted, panicking but unable to do anything to stop them.
Damn it.
Let us go.
Charles and Patricia resisted for a while, but were ultimately arrested on the spot for obstruction of justice. Katie and Thomas stood frozen, unable to process the situation. Katie, I think you assumed I worked as a clerk for the city government, but that's not true. My actual job is as a fugitive investigator.
A fugitive? Investigator?
Wait, you're a cop?
I pulled out my badge and showed it to them. Seeing it, their faces grew even paler. A fugitive investigator memorizes the faces and features of wanted criminals and patrols public areas to identify fugitives hiding in plain sight. My brain is a database filled with information about countless criminals. The moment I first saw Katie, I recognized her face. It bore a striking resemblance to the faces of Charles and Patricia Forrester, both wanted fugitives. But a resemblance alone wasn't enough to act on. I needed something definitive to confirm my suspicion, and Katie conveniently provided that proof herself. The necklace you're wearing around your neck.
Ah. This? What about it?
That necklace was stolen from a jeweler by your parents 20 years ago. That necklace confirmed my suspicions. It was stolen property, and Katie was indeed the daughter of the wanted Forrester couple.
What?
Katie exclaimed in panic. She ripped the necklace off her neck and threw it onto the floor in desperation. Thomas stared at it, wide-eyed.
This is ridiculous. The statute of limitations must be expired by now.
So why do we have to be arrested?
Shouting, Charles and Patricia glared at me. I let out a deep sigh. Unfortunately for you two, you fled overseas right after the crime, didn't you? The statute of limitations stops counting while you're out of the country. I pointed this out, adding, didn't you know that?
No way.
That's a lie. There's no way the statute of limitations wouldn't count.
Oh, but it does. Coming back here without knowing that. How careless. Did you think everyone forgot about your crimes just because it happened 20 years ago? This is exactly why fugitive investigators exist. Criminals on the run tend to forget things like that. At this, the Forrester couple collapsed on the floor. I figured they no longer had the energy to resist. With that settled, I turned to Katie.
I didn't know anything about this, I swear. Emily, I'm so sorry.
Katie was tearful as she apologized. Katie.
Hey, from now on, let's get along, okay? I didn't know about my parents being criminals, and I'll cut ties with them now.
Talk about a quick change of attitude. But I had already decided not to forgive Katie either. Tell me, Katie, did you inherit your sticky fingers from your parents? I asked with a hint of sarcasm, and Katie panicked.
What do you mean by that?
That necklace, you said your mom gave it to you, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what happened.
How strange. As I murmured this, Katie's voice grew louder. I suspected that the necklace Katie was wearing wasn't something her mother had given her, but something she had stolen from her mother without permission. That necklace is stolen property. I doubt any criminal would intentionally pass stolen goods down to their kid and have them flaunt it in public.
So what if it is?
You could be charged with theft. Oh, and let's not forget your other minor offenses. As I said this, Katie's face turned pale and she started trembling. After all, Katie, you tried to steal money from my house and scattered garbage in front of it, didn't you?
That's because you wouldn't cooperate.
Why would I cooperate when you never asked me properly? Too bad for you, but I've been documenting everything since the day you first came to my house, I said with a smile. Katie's eyes widened in shock. My late husband set up security cameras all around the house in case anything happened. They're installed in places you'd never notice. So I've got plenty of footage as evidence.
Damn it. You tricked me into thinking you were just a government worker.
Oh, but police officers are also public servants. And given the nature of my investigations, I can't exactly wear a uniform, can I? You really should brush up on your basic knowledge. When I shifted my gaze, I saw one of my colleagues attempting to place handcuffs on Katie's wrist. However, Katie resisted, unwilling to accept her fate. But when I pointed out that further resistance would only worsen her charges, she suddenly became compliant. The red lights of the police cars shone brightly in the quiet residential area at night. 2 police cars were used to escort Katie and her parents away. I felt relieved that this commotion had finally come to an end. Suddenly, I heard laughter from the side.
You know, if I'd known she was the daughter of criminals, I wouldn't have married her.
Thomas, Katie is your wife, isn't she? How can you say something like that?
Well, it's true, isn't it? Who in their right mind would marry such a spoiled brat? No one would.
Thomas laughed even harder. It seemed he genuinely believed that Katie was the daughter of corporate executives and had only married her for her, or rather, her parents' wealth.
Emily, I've decided. I'm divorcing Katie.
Why was he making this declaration to me? I couldn't understand.
And then, why don't you and I get together?
What?
I'm saying, let's get married.
His suggestion was so absurd that I couldn't even get angry. I was just dumbfounded. Even though his wife and her parents had just been arrested, he was already thinking about his next move. But why on earth would that involve marrying me?
Your cooking is amazing. Plus, if you're a cop, I wouldn't even have to work.
He said this with a laugh. Hearing those words, it was clear that Thomas just wanted an easy life. That's why it was so simple for him to suggest marriage. I let out a deep sigh for what felt like the 100th time. I had never considered finding a new husband, especially with George in my life. And Thomas? Absolutely not. There is no way I'd ever marry you.
What?
I rejected Thomas firmly. His face turned bright red in anger. Did he seriously think I would agree to his ridiculous proposal? If so, how low was his IQ?
Thomas, there you are.
How much longer are you going to rely on Emily, you fool of a son?
Gosh, Mom? Dad?
Thomas' father, a retired detective, had been re-employed at the same workplace as me. I had consulted Thomas' parents about both him and Katie. They had been waiting for the right moment to drag Thomas back home. Thomas panicked and tried to run, but he tripped over a toy police car that George had rolled onto the floor.
Whoa.
You're not getting away this time.
Let go of me, Dad.
Even though he was over 60, Thomas' father, who still hadn't lost his strength, easily subdued him.
Looks like my son caused you a lot of trouble.
No, thank you so much.
From now on, he'll keep a close eye on him, so don't worry.
I expressed my gratitude to my in-laws. I couldn't count how many times Thomas had come to this house, causing trouble for me and George. Thomas tried to struggle, but trapped in his father's firm grip, he couldn't move as he wanted. Realizing he couldn't escape, he slumped his head in defeat as his parents escorted him away. All right, time to clean up. I began tidying up the mess left behind from the commotion.
Mom, I'll help.
Oh, thank you. George did what he could to help. Even though so many adults had come, and he must have been scared, he didn't show it at all. George was acting just as he usually did.
Hey, Mom,
What is it?
when I grow up, I'll protect you.
Seeing George's determined expression, I thought I caught a glimpse of my late husband in his face. I see. Thank you, George.
I promise.
Well then, you'll have to work hard for that, won't you? George nodded seriously, his expression unwavering. I imagined George growing up and keeping his promise. Until that day comes, I vowed to protect him with all my strength.